Hey friends, happy Friday. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new and you're stopping by for the first time, welcome. My name is Melissa and I love to do all things crafty on a budget, especially Dollar Tree DIYs, farmhouse decor, and much more. So if that's something you're interested in, I would love it if you would stick around by clicking the red subscribe button and then tap the bell and all to be notified every single time I upload. I also wanted to mention that if you guys want to become part of my Facebook group, the information is linked in the description box below. If you tap the title of this video, an information box will appear, and that is where the description box is. Also, my P.O. box and my Instagram handle information is also linked below, as well as a list of all the materials that you guys need for these projects. So for today's video, I have 6 Dollar Tree Fall Farmhouse DIYs. And I am so excited to bring these to you. So with all that being said, let's jump right into today's DIYs.
I want to be daring, baby, dance the night away. I let my head down if I want.
First things first, we are going to make this little pumpkin wagon. So I wasn't really too sure how big of wheels I needed, and at Dollar Tree they have 2 different trucks with 2 different size wheels. So I just grabbed them both and I just popped the wheels off of both of them using some needle nose pliers and just a little bit of pressure. And then once I popped those off, I had to take off the rest of the plastic around that wheel part, because when you break it off, it breaks off in pieces, and then when you try to attach it to your little wagon, it won't sit right if you don't take those pieces off. So they're not hard at all, you guys. This is just really cheap plastic, but anyway, I knew that I could just put the other wheels aside for a different project. So I take the sticker off the bottom of this little pumpkin, and then I spray paint it with my hammered Rust-Oleum spray paint. I measure the bottom where I need my little piece to attach the wheels. I cut them off, and I did use a small dowel rod, and then I take some hot glue and I glue the dowel to the one part of the wheel, and then let that set up. While the glue is setting up, then I work on the next one, and once it's all set up, then I do the other side of the wheel. You definitely want to make sure this is dry before you let go of it, because it will fall apart. Next, I just take some white Waverly chalk paint and I go around that little part in the wheel. Like if you see a wagon, that middle part is always white, so I did want to just mimic that in this project as well. After I do the wheels, I set that aside because my spray paint was not dry yet. So I take this Happy Halloween sign, and I want to take this apart because I want to put scrapbook paper on it, and I knew that it would just be much easier to take it apart. And of course, these are just cheap pieces of paper over these cardboard pieces, so it did rip, and then I did just rip the rest of that paper off of the middle one, because most of it was gone anyway. And then it also had like these little staples in them, I guess, holding them together, and I did go ahead and just take those out with some pliers as well. After I pulled the staples out, then I just sanded down that glittery part on the Happy Halloween, and then I chose my scrapbook paper and traced the pumpkins out and then cut those out. For the middle one, I used this pumpkin scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby, and then for the ones on the sides, I took this orange buffalo check from Hobby Lobby as well. Like I said, I then just cut them out, and then once I had them all cut out, I took a glue stick and then I just glued all those down. Then once I had them all glued down, then I glued those together.
Come out and play. It's Saturday, and I promise I'll love you much
So once I have them all glued together, then I just take a piece of jute and I measure out how long I'm going to need it, because I'm going to make like a little banner. And then once I measure it and cut it, then I take a piece of painter's tape and I just put that on the end, because when you're trying to bead this jute cord, it doesn't want to go through. So if you put a piece of tape, it's just much easier to string the beads on. So once I had the tape on, then I just strung the beads how I like, in the pattern that I wanted, and I did 3 14 millimeters and then 2, I believe these are 10 millimeter, but I will leave it in the description box below. I had this piece of burlap, I don't even know what you want to call it. I think it's like laminated burlap, and I just cut 4 little triangles out. I cut one out at first, and then I measured, or I traced it on here and then cut them out. Once I had them cut out, then I just dabbed on some ink chalk paint onto a stencil, and I just stenciled the letters FALL for fall. Normally, I do not like to stencil, but because this is burlap, it would have been really hard to trace on here and then go over with a paint pen. So I did just stencil these on there. I also wanted to mention that I did get this stencil at Dollar Tree. They're actually really nice letters, so I'm definitely excited that I picked this up. After I had them all stenciled, then I just take a really tiny paintbrush and that same chalk paint, and I just filled in the gaps in those letters. Once I had filled the gaps in, then it's time to glue our little banner pieces on. So I just run a bead of hot glue at the top of these little banners, and then I just stick it right to the jute. Nothing really fancy, nothing really too hard. Basically, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. But I did use this little spatula so that I did not burn my fingers. One of my sweet subscribers sent me that. After I had the little pieces on there, then I just take the end, and it was a little bit longer than I had anticipated, so I did just kind of wrap the edge of that over and then held it down until it was glued down, and I did use hot glue for this. So once I had the first side done, then I went ahead and did the next side. And you just want to make sure, like I always say, to hold this down until it's dry or cooled off, whatever you want to call it, because it will pop up on you. So I just hold it down for a minute or two, and then in the spots that needed held down on the little banner, I just put a couple dabs of hot glue. Last but not least, I made 2 simple raffia bows, and then I glued them to the pumpkins on each side. Such a simple craft, but how high-end does this look, you guys? Moving on, or moving back, I should say, to our little pumpkin wagon. So I galvanized this by, obviously, first I spray painted it, and then I take a natural sponge and some Elephant Waverly chalk paint, and I just dab all the way around this little piece. I always say that this kind of is your preference, how you like it. So you can do it as little or as much as you like, and then once you do the elephant, then you go in with that same sponge and some white Waverly chalk paint, and you just dab all around it again. Now, I'm sure you guys are tired of me saying this, but for my new subscribers, the galvanizing technique works by the silver, and then the elephant tones that silver down, and then the white makes it look like galvanized metal. Once I have my galvanizing done, then I take 2 towering blocks, I glue those on each end, and then I take some hot glue and I glue our little wheels down. Once I glued our little wheels down, then I'm going to take a small popsicle stick. They sell these at Dollar Tree, and I cut it in half, glue the rounded edge part together like a little hitch. And then once I had the hitch glued together, then I glue the hitch to the bottom of that front wheel. Now, it is kind of tricky gluing it to a dowel rod, so just make sure, again, you're holding it until the glue dries. I take a little bit of a bigger dowel rod and I measure where I want my little handle to be, and then I just cut that down with some scissors. I then just take a really tiny square dowel rod and I cut that off for the handle part, and then I glue that together after I sanded down the rough edges. Then once I have this all glued together, I then paint the hitch and the handle with some black ink Waverly chalk paint. I did want to mention too that I got these little tiny square dowel rods. Usually I use dowel rods that I get from Amazon, but in this case I had gotten a pack of round or assorted dowel rods a while back, and that small square dowel rod came in the pack. Once I had that all painted, then I just take my chip brush and I dry brushed some black around the edges, and then I realized that I did not want to do the black. I actually wanted to do the antique wax to make this look like rustic and old, because the antique wax makes those little spots look like rust. So after I did around the edges, then I did those parts that are cut out in the middle. See, one side of this is flat and the other has a few pieces cut out. So either side that you want to display it is your choice. But I did forgot to mention that I did glue down the handle as well. And then that project was done so quick, so easy, and so cute. Next, we're going to make like a 3D pumpkin. I saw these 3D wreath forms at Dollar Tree, and I picked one up a while back, but I just was not too sure what I was going to do with it. And then the idea came to mind that I can make like a pumpkin out of it. So I'm not going to lie, this part putting it together was tricky. I don't know if the solution for making it 3D that they have is the best solution to keep it together, but once you do a few, then it does become easier. But it comes with these little metal pieces, and you have to lay it on the top and then kind of wrap the edges around it, if that makes sense. You can see what I'm doing here, but they do give you two pieces, so you have to do the top and the bottom, and it still would not sit right. So I just took a craft stick, cut it down, and then glued it to the bottom. Next, I take this wire from Dollar Tree. This is the thicker floral wire. Thicker floral wire, and I had these 20 millimeter beads, as well as 14 millimeter, 12 millimeter, and 10 millimeter. So I just string those through, going from the largest to the smallest, and I wanted this to look like a stem, so make sure that you curl the ends so they don't fall off on you. But once I had as many on there as I wanted, then I just take the end and I wrap that around at the top. Once I had that wrapped around, then I just put a bead of hot glue on the edge of this, so that way my beads would not fall off, and then I just clip that end off. So again, this still was not sitting right. It was driving me crazy, you guys. So I did take a small stir stick and I just cut two pieces off and tried to get that to make it balance a little bit better, and it did a little better, but not as good as I would want it to be. Anyway, moving on, I just had a bunch of greenery from Dollar Tree, Walmart, a bunch of different places, and I just glued greenery at the bottom until I was satisfied, and at the top, and then I just dry brushed some of my truffle Waverly chalk paint. It's a brown color around these beads. Last but not least, I just put a little candle in there, and that quick and easy, you have a high-end looking pumpkin greenery I don't even know what you want to call it, you guys. So moving on to probably the easiest project, I take one of these little Dollar Tree houses. I cut around the edges where the back part meets this house piece. And then when I pull it off, of course, again, this stupid cheap paper, it had ripped all up. So I just cleaned that up to where you couldn't see it. And then I took my scrapbook paper of choice, and this one is from Hobby Lobby. It's a bigger orange buffalo check. I traced it, cut it out, and then glued it down with some a glue stick. Once I had that glued down, then I printed this off of the internet. I cut that round piece off, took 2 Jenga blocks and set that, glued them down. And then I took some Aleene's tacky glue, and then I glued this little pumpkin print off, whatever you want to call it. So Starbond was nice enough to send this super glue to me. I'm so sorry, you guys. I can never talk. Super glue to me, and you guys, this super glue is bomb. I wanted to use it because when I'm doing these houses, the hot glue dries way too quick, and then the back never sticks. So you guys, this super glue glues so well. Like, you can move it the first like 10 to 20 seconds, and then after like a minute, it is so sticky you cannot even touch it. But anyway, I took those 2 little pumpkins, put some sticks in there because the tops were gone, and then I gave it a little bit of dimension, glued those down, and then glued down a raffia bow. That one was finished. Moving on to the next project, I took 2 of these beware signs, took the tag off. I used some lightweight spackling and I filled those holes in, and then I cut the edges so that when I put these together that they would sit flush with one another. Once I had them cut down, then I just take my little finger sander. This is always linked in the description box below in my Amazon favorites under micro zip sander, and then took some large popsicle sticks and glued those together. I then just give this a light coat of white Waverly chalk paint, and I leave it a little bit distressed rather than have to go in and distress it in the end. And then this is why I always save my print offs, because I'm going to use this pumpkin print off from a different project, and then I also printed off Happy Harvest. I will leave the information in the description box below. And then I just used the pumpkin from that first picture. I did not use the wording. I did want to just mention that. And then I left this clip in here and I just sped it up really fast so that you guys could see how easy it is to paint these pumpkins. I got a lot of comments that you guys were absolutely loving the pumpkins that I painted, how professional they looked, and you guys, it's so easy. You guys can do it. Please do not get discouraged. If I can do it, you can do it. And I know it seems kind of scary, but like I mentioned before, if you are a little bit nervous, just practice on a piece of paper, and then once you get the hang of it, then you can paint your pieces. After I painted my little pumpkins, then I just did the stems in brown. I did want to mention that. And then I took my black paint pen and I went over that wording. Once I did the larger letters and my pumpkins were dry, then I took this Happy and I went over the pumpkins because I wanted this to be in the pumpkins rather than below or on top of the pumpkins. After I traced that down with my graphite paper, which is also linked in my Amazon favorites, then I did just go over it with my Sharpie paint pen. Once I went over that, then I wanted to give this a little bit of like a shadow, so I just went in with a very small paintbrush and some white Waverly chalk paint and just in random places. I've done so much lettering that I kind of know where to place them. So if you need to slow this clip down, in the corner there is 3 dots, and then there's a menu and you can change the speed. Last but not least, I take my chip brush and some antique wax, and I just dry brush that all around the edges like normal, like I usually do. This is probably my signature move, if you guys know what I mean, and if you've been around for some time. Let me know in the comments down below how long you guys have been around. I would love to see how many people have been here for a long time and those who just got here. Oh, I forgot to mention that I did glue a D-hook to the back with some hot glue. This is a very, very light sign, so you do not need to use any screws or, you know what I mean. Again, you guys, it's literally 1:10 in the morning. This mama is totally exhausted per usual. So for our last project, I take this pumpkin from Dollar Tree and I just give it a good coat of white Waverly chalk paint. I then just printed this off the internet. I get a lot of questions if I can link these. You guys, I don't want to get in trouble for copyright. These are not my images and they're not free printables. So all I do is go to Google, type in fall decor, find the ones I like, and then copy, paste into Word, resize it, and then print it. So I took these letters from Hobby Lobby, I painted them black, and then again using my Starbond glue, because hot glue dries so fast, I wanted to be able to move these really quick if I needed to. And the link to this glue is in the description box below. Trust me, you want to get it. It's really, really good. And I'm not just saying that. I was totally amazed at this stuff. So anyway, I took my glue and I just glued those letters down. And before I glued them down, I did just lay them out to make sure they were right where I wanted them. And I did get questions on my little tweezers. These are actually Cricut tweezers, you guys. So you can search Amazon Cricut tweezers. I will link a pair down below if you guys are interested. So this little truck had like some brown in the background, and I wanted at least the window to stand out, so I did just take my knife and cut that out. I forgot to mention that I did paint the little pumpkins that I took off of a wooden truck from Dollar Tree, and I painted that with some orange, and there was a little bit of black on my brush, so that's why it looks kind of like an ombre effect. But these pumpkins were a little bit too big, so I did cut them in half and then kind of layer them so that they would fit in the back of this truck. Once I figured out how I wanted them, then I did just take that super glue again, glued them together and made sure that my truck would fit. And then I took these little pop dot adhesives, I think they're called. It's just so that whatever you're gluing down is raised up off of your picture or whatever you're using. I know a lot of people use them for like cards and stuff, but I like to use them in my projects because sometimes you just want to give it a little bit of dimension, and that's what I had in mind here. Plus, these pumpkins are raised anyway, so I didn't want the front of the truck to look like plastered to this and then the back was raised, if that makes sense. So once I had it where I wanted it, then I just took a dab of hot glue in the back and I glued those down, making sure that it is right where I want it. So then I just took another piece of graphite paper and I traced on that pumpkin patch that was at the bottom of this truck. And then once I had it traced on, then I went in with my black paint pen once again, and I went over that lettering. The first paint pen that I used was a really large one. It is in the brand Sharpie. I will link those in the description box below. And then this one is a fine point. I do have a bunch of different sizes just because you never know what size you're actually going to need. So it's good to have different sizes, because sometimes you need to just do like small detailing, and then for like the harvest sign, it's so big that a paint pen this small would take you days. And I don't know about y'all, but I ain't got time for that. I got a newborn, a 4-year-old, and a 14-year-old. I don't even know how I get the stuff done that I do, but thankfully I do. So I ain't got time to be using a little tiny paint pen on some big letters. So next I just take my chip brush and some ink Waverly chalk paint, and I just go around that, giving it a little bit of character. I take some jute, I put a dab of hot glue on the back of this little pumpkin, and then I just wrap my jute around the stem, and at the end it is a little bit tricky, so just put a dab of hot glue, wrap it, and then hold it a little bit, and then you can wrap it all the way around, and then at the end just curl it onto the top. If that makes no sense, you guys can see what I'm doing here. It's kind of tricky to explain sometimes, but I do the best I can. Last but not least, I take this simple bow. I'll leave my bow trick in the cards in the right hand corner, and it is buffalo check, and then I just glue that down to the top. Once again, we come to the end, my friends. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it so much. I don't know, what is your favorite? Please leave it in the comments down below. I think my favorite is the buffalo check truck sign, but per usual, I can never decide, and I'm always curious to hear what you guys think, because I always think, oh, they're gonna love this one, and then you guys say that you love a different one. So I love to hear what you guys think. If you're new, please consider introducing yourself in the comments down below. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Share it with your family and friends if you think they would enjoy it. Those thumbs up and shares really help my channel to grow. And until next time, you guys, I will see you later. And then you guys have been asking for a clip of my little one. So here it goes. Here is a little clip of her. She's my little dreamer. I love you guys so much, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Are you feeling it too? Oh, baby. Won't you love me? Won't you love me? Won't you love me? Love me like yesterday. Don't you feel it? How it feels, baby.